Did you know high-quality versions of all episodes of Freedom Rocks are available on DVD? Each DVD contains 3 episodes for just $15. We also have specials that aren't on our CTV or YouTube. You can find links to all of our DVDs on the Freedom Rocks website, freedomrocks.cybermansoftware.com.
Welcome to Freedom Rocks. My name is Mark Glogowski. I'm a registered libertarian. We're here today to chat with Chris Edes. Chris Edes is a candidate for governor for New York State. And the topic of the conversation today, I believe, will be New York State, New York State law?
Stand your ground law or?
Penal law, Article 35. Chris, the last few weeks, everyone has been inundated with this trial between Zimmerman and Trayvon. And I was curious what your views were on that trial, the outcome, and what you believe we should be doing now.
Well, you know, unlike virtually every other American, I'm not going to try to second guess the jury. I thought it was interesting that when this whole thing first went down, everyone had an opinion before any facts were known, either one way or the other. And I guess many people still have opinions, regardless of the facts. But I think there are some things that have to be recognized. I mean, what's important to me from a libertarian point of view is non-aggression, right? So, you know, I wasn't there. It doesn't matter if somebody says something you don't like, or, you know, if they're walking on the same side of the street as you and you don't like that. You know, that doesn't give you the right to attack them. Even if you're pretty sure that they are racist and they hate you, it still doesn't give you the right to attack them. And so, you know, I don't know, like I said, I don't know George Zimmerman. I wasn't on the jury. What I do know is that Trayvon Martin threw the first punch. So, you know, regardless of what he thought was going down, he attacked George Zimmerman, knocked him to the ground, was punching him in the face, and George Zimmerman said, "Whoa, what's going on here?" and shot him. It's quite possible that could have been avoided, but, you know, as many people know, have had personal experience of a dangerous situation, you know, everything's 20/20 in hindsight. Fact of the matter is, if someone attacks you, you have the right to defend yourself. And George Zimmerman defended himself.
Okay, if that were to happen in New York State, what does New York State law have to say about you defending yourself?
Well, actually, what's interesting is the much vaunted castle doctrine in Florida didn't actually come into play here. Like, if this was New York State, it would have been the same situation, right? Like, New York State does impose a duty to retreat.
The castle doctrine being what?
Well, it's different in different states. Actually, in New York, if you're in your own home and someone attacks you, you do not have a duty to retreat. Let's retreat where, right? But in Florida, that right extends outside the home to the street, where you don't have a duty to retreat. You know, it's not because, I mean, in my opinion, a duty to retreat on the street means we'll just cede the street to thugs. We'll just let thugs rule the street, you know, and I'm against that. And I think that's.
So the Florida rule is commonly referred to as stand your ground?
Right, stand your ground.
Okay.
It's commonly referred to as stand your ground. You don't have to let thugs rule the street. is, the decent people have an equal right to the street as everybody else does in Florida. Not so in New York. But in New York, it's still, if someone knocks you down and is, on top of you going, you have the right to, you can shoot them. Because they're attacking
if you're still awake after the first time it hits you.
Right. I mean, you're flat on your back, and they're on top of you, punching you. Where are you going to retreat to? Retreat where?
Right.
Retreat what? Into the grave? So in New York State, in that particular situation, you would have the right to defend yourself. You would still have the right to defend yourself even if you were a racist, because it doesn't really matter if someone's attacking you what your opinion of them is. Only that the only opinion that has to be correct is the opinion that they are in fact attacking you, and that's someone's just on top of you punching you. It's fairly straightforward.
Okay. We had talked a little bit about, we're libertarians. I'd like to ask you a couple questions to help clarify why we're libertarians and how we would relate to the audience out there. So I'd like to ask you two questions. They're my favorite. I call them interrogatories. The first one is, who is ultimately responsible for your welfare?
You are.
I'm responsible for your welfare?
No, you're responsible for your welfare. I'm responsible for my welfare.
Okay. Now, the reason I ask that question is because that sets a direction. And the direction is who's going to make the decisions. Because if you're responsible for your welfare, then you should be making your own decisions. And if you're making your own decisions, then the government should leave the resources in your hands. So in politics, when they talk direction, they're talking about who's going to make the decisions. And to illustrate, in a current example, Obamacare was the Affordable Health Care Act. Who makes all the decisions? The government does. The government makes the decisions and gives you choices depending upon what group you're in. You'll have a choice. And you could choose to keep your own health care program if you want. You may not be able to afford it anymore, but you can choose to keep it if you want to pay the bill. But the government makes decisions, you make choices. This is the reason why, in that direction, all the Republicans are opposed to it, because the wrong group is making a decision. Okay, the other question I would like to ask has to do with the approach of government. And the approach of government has to do with when you walk down the street in the average middle-class America or upper-class America or even poor-class America, the average person out there,
right,
are they basically good or basically evil?
I don't think... I mean, some people are good and some people are evil. I don't think you can paint every single human being as basically good or basically evil.
But the average person, I mean, do you fear for your life every time you walk down Main Street?
No.
People are coming at you. You fear for your life?
No.
Why? You trust that people are basically good, don't you? I mean, you're trusting that they're going to do the right thing. They're not going to harm you. Their interests are to improve themselves and society. Isn't this what your basic understanding is of society as a whole? I mean, this is not a new concept, because it's a concept that you deal with every time someone walks toward you. You always do two things. The first thing you always do is you ask yourself, are you safe? Don't you? I mean, if you're not safe, this person's coming at you and you're not safe, you recognize you're not safe, what do? You'll flee. You'll protect yourself.
Actually, personally, and this is why, when I was running for local office, I just walk anywhere in the city of Rochester and walk up to people's door and knock on their door and say, hi, I'm running for a school board or city council or whatever, is because, I won't live in fear. And so it doesn't matter if I think that there are bad people out there on the street that might do things to me. I'm still going to walk down the street because I'm not going to let them deny me the use of the street, even if they are bad people. So I don't know that I necessarily assume that everybody's good. I just assume I'm just, I'm not going to be intimidated. So if they are bad, come at me and
the question
we'll
was not, is everyone good? The question is the average American basically good or basically evil? The average American, not the 3% that are criminally insane and are willing to rob you in the middle of daylight, in the middle of a crowd. They don't care. But if you exclude the criminally insane, which is, unfortunately, it's about 3%. The rest of America, are they basically evil or basically good?
I mean, I guess I'm going to say basically good.
Okay.
I mean, if it has to be one or the other. But
Well,
think
the reason that's important, it's an important
spectrum.
question in terms of the approach of government, because you either empower the good people or you confine the evil people. And when you write a law, you cannot do both. Those laws don't work. So the laws are usually written to either empower people or to confine people. And the libertarians, they believe people are responsible for themselves and they're basically good. I mean, this is why I kept pressing you on this issue, because if you believe people are basically evil, you will confine everyone, good people and evil people, and control them. And the best example of an approach to a solution in terms of a conservative, people are evil approach is Homeland Security. When those planes flew into when those planes flew into the Twin Towers,
right.
The Republican response was Homeland Security. When you go to the airport, it doesn't matter who you are. You're told what you can take on the plane and what you can't take on the plane, and then you're searched to make sure you did it right. And if you didn't, they'll confiscate anything that they believe you shouldn't take on the plane, to make sure that you're totally defenseless, and then guarantee that if the plane is hijacked, our own military will shoot it down. Conservative approach to government. People basically evil. The conservative Republicans see absolutely nothing wrong with the Homeland Security approach to this terrorist situation. And the libertarian approach is, well, look, 4 planes were hijacked. 3 of them made it to their destination, and 1 of them didn't. Why not? Well, because people took it upon themselves. Good people took it upon themselves to do the right thing, and that's what we need to do more of, encourage good people to do the right thing. That's the approach to government. Now, why is this libertarian approach important? Well, when it comes to a situation like personal defense or defense of another individual in society, we need to have laws that will allow us to defend ourselves and to defend other people against violence. And that's what this Penal Law number 35 was supposedly set out to do. But can you elaborate a little bit more on what this law actually does allow someone to do, or as opposed to just going out and shooting people?
Righting wrongs. Yeah. Well, it's actually, I have to admit, before when this whole thing broke and I was looking up New York State's laws in this regard, I thought it would be more narrowly tailored for a left-leaning or progressive state. But maybe this was written back when New York had more of a balanced set of ideas. But as it will in the future under an Edes administration. But yeah, justification, defensive justification is what the article is called. It's just basically saying, let's see here, justification generally, right? Conduct which would be otherwise a constituent offense is not an offense, is justifiable if...
we're going to have to take a break. I ran a little over time, so let's take a break and we'll be right back.
Have you ever played WTF Sudoku?
You mean WTF as in what the f***?
Yes.
What the f*** is so all-fired? What the f*** about Sudoku?
Regular Sudoku is played on a 9x9 grid with exactly 1 of every digit 1 through 9 in every row, column, and 3x3 grid.
So what?
WTF Sudoku is played on a 25x25 grid with exactly 1 of every letter A through Y in every row, column, and 5x5 group.
WTF. How can I play WTF Sudoku?
You can play it online at www.cybermansoftware.com/games. You can also buy a book of puzzles on Amazon.com. Just search for WTF Sudoku.
Book? You mean on paper?
Yes, that's correct.
So that's www.cybermansoftware.com/games or by searching for WTF Sudoku on Amazon.com.
Yes.
Okay, we're back. You were saying?
All right. Well, generally, the justification here is to avoid an imminent public or private injury, which is about to occur by reason of a situation that develops through no fault of the actor being the person that would be invoking this law as a defense for their use of force. And according to the through no fault of the actor and of such gravity that according to ordinary standards of intelligence and morality, the desirability and urgency of avoiding such an injury outweigh the desirability of avoiding the injury sought to be prevented by the statute defining the offense in issue. So basically what they're saying is if you see a situation where somebody is in danger, you can use force to intervene as long as the force that you use is not going to be worse than the use of force or the offense that you're trying to put a stop to, and as long as you don't play any role in causing it. So if I make an agreement with somebody else and say you go make trouble and then I'll come in and save the day, like that doesn't justify me because I participated in causing that to take place. So you can't kind of try to be sneaky and set something up like that. It has to be pretty straightforward. You just come upon a situation, you don't have anything to do with it, someone is going to get hurt, somebody's in trouble, and you can use as much force as is necessary to stop them as long as you don't actually go overboard and make the situation worse. That's generally what Article 35 is about.
Okay. When can you use deadly force?
You deadly force. Now, it's...
I believe if you're looking at the article, I believe it's, what is it, 3530?
3530, yeah. It's basically, you can use deadly force if somebody is going to die or receive serious injury. What is it for? Acting on his or her account, yeah. So, I think it's at 3515.
Yeah, 3530, the very last page of this.
Yeah.
Number 4.
It's basically if somebody else is going to be killed or come to serious physical harm, then you can use deadly force. Basically, things like murder, forcible rape, manslaughter, you can use deadly force in those situations. Against somebody.
Against somebody that's actually fleeing.
I don't think you use it if they're fleeing.
Yeah, I believe it is.
You can use it to prevent flight from a crime.
Yeah, 35.
Preventing an escape. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. The effective arrest of a person who has committed murder, manslaughter, first-degree robbery, forcible rape, forcible criminal sexual act, and who is in immediate
flight therefrom. Oh, you're right.
So
that's actually pretty good.
Yeah, that's
pretty good for a state
such a
that's
liberal
not,
state that says,
that's not usually big
let
on.
the criminal go. It's okay.
Yeah, that's usually let them commit the crime and the police will catch them later. Mm-hmm. Which is never something I've been a big fan of because the police usually don't catch them later.
Yeah.
When you look at the statistics and they just get away. But yeah.
We need to take another break and we'll be back in a couple minutes. Thank you.
As you may have noticed, you can watch Freedom Rocks for free on RCTV or on YouTube, but it takes money to produce good quality TV shows. You can support Freedom Rocks by shopping at our Cafe Press shop. There you can find t-shirts for men and women, tote and gin bags, coffee mugs, beer steins, food and beverage thermoses, and a bunch of other items Cafe Press offers. You can find our shop at cafepress.com/freedomrocks, all lowercase and no apostrophe.
Okay, we're back. And we were talking about criminals getting away and use of deadly force. I'd like to ask what your view is on the stand-your ground law and having the stand-your ground law adopted in New York State.
Well, I definitely think we should have a stand-your-ground law adopted in New York State. It should not be, as it is presently, limited to only when you're in your home and you have nowhere else to retreat to, or when your back is on the ground and someone's beating you, I have no place to retreat to. I mean, the question is, are we going to allow thugs to rule the streets or not? If all the good and peaceful people have a duty to retreat, and violent criminals apparently don't have a duty to retreat, then we just allow our streets to be ruled by violent criminals.
Yeah, isn't that really government by expectation, where the expectation in society is that if you're committing a crime and you're willing to create violence and harm to people, everybody's going to just basically flee from you. So you got a free chance or free access to whatever you want. Whereas stand your ground would put an end to that expectation that people are going to flee. And if you put an end to the expectation that people are going to flee, you'll probably put an end to the expectation that criminals will actually come out and create crime as much as what has happened. I think one of the typical situations where the expectation in society is that good people will flee is when you start confiscating weapons. And you look at cities like Detroit and Chicago. And I understand Chicago last weekend had 78 murders. And why wasn't that in the news?
In the one weekend? That seems
in one weekend, yeah. And apparently it's not news because it happens all the time. That is the expectation, that good people will not put an end to this. Well, then the question is, well, if good people have guns and they could put an end to it, that's just going to be more murders. But no, it isn't. I mean, I think creating the expectation that good people will stand up for themselves and defend themselves and not back down puts the criminal on notice.
I agree.
The one situation that I recall vividly hearing accounts of is when the Black Knight movie in Colorado showed at 7 different theaters. The one theater that was actually attacked, the theater owner put out a notice that no weapons would be allowed in the theater. And that was the only theater that did that, and that was a theater that the criminal realized that it's the safest to attack.
Oh yeah, every mass shooting, since the Gun-Free School Zones Act was passed, and that actually applied to more than schools, like bicycle courthouses and stuff like that too. Since that was passed, every single mass shooting, except for one, the Gabby Giffords shooting, has been in a gun-free zone. Since we instituted gun-free zones, every mass shooting except one has been at the gun-free zones. So they're clearly not doing their job. No. They're just the opposite. They're attracting the violence to them because people are like, oh, no one can shoot back. I mean, where would you go? If you wanted to kill a bunch of people, would you go to some place where they can't shoot back?
Hunting club.
Where they can't shoot. Right. There's never, ever been a mass shooting at a gun show. There hasn't been a non-mass shooting. There hasn't been any shootings. There hasn't been any stabbings. No one ever goes to a gun show to make trouble, ever, despite the fact that there's more guns there than anywhere. Mm-hmm. There just isn't any crime there. People don't even shoplift there. They don't even try to lift anything off the table. Yeah. And it's not because there's shootouts in the aisles. It's just because people say, you know what, if I'm going to make trouble, now's not the time and place. Right. So
we need to create some expectations in society, a different set of expectations. Is everything in this this law, this penal code, is everything basically, are you in agreement with?
Of this? Yeah. I mean, I read this. I just read this again shortly before I came here. And everything, I mean, like I said, I would go a little further. because I would say, you don't have a duty to retreat if you're on the street, but in terms of what this allows, in terms of defending people from physical harm, defense of, the premises in the case of burglary, these are all reasonable things. It's worth noting that in Chicago, the Chicago Police Department recently said they're not going to respond to burglaries in progress. Unless somebody is in danger of physical harm, just make a list of what was taken and give it to the police, and they'll try to get it back for you later. They're not going to send a squad car out. You say, my house is being robbed. They'll be like, okay, that's nice.
And they'll give you a report you can give to your insurance company.
Right, basically. That's what they'll give you. They'll give you a report for the insurance company. But unless, if your house is being robbed, they're not going to come. They're not going to send anybody, because it's Chicago and people get robbed all the time, yada, yada, yada. If you're not in physical danger, they don't care. So if anyone's going to stop your house from being robbed, it's going to have to be you. Then Chicago doesn't make that easy on you either, because they don't allow people to possess guns if they're civilians. But in New York State, you can defend your home with physical force if you're being burglarized.
We're coming down to the last minute here, and before we sign off, I'd like to just state that this is a libertarian show. I'd like to encourage you to look at the Libertarian Party. We do have our own views on different issues. This program is presented by basically Max Kessler is the producer, director, and I'd like to encourage you to go to our website. It is www.freedomrocks.cybersoftware.com, and let us know what you think. We don't know that you've watched or what you think unless you tell us. Thank you very much, and look forward to talking to you the next time.